If you are amazed to see two study posts from me straight, your reaction disappears than my own. For the last one may be billed that I caught flattery and also bribery in taking it on. No case to be produced that below. As you'll see, this remark showed up on a message I desire they had reviewed prior to investing. From Mr. Pink. My sister is 50 years old and also recently became impaired. Over the past 3 decades, she has taken care of to conserve $618,000 by saving most of her income. She has actually never ever bought the stock exchange. She thinks the stock market is even worse than betting. Since she is not able to work currently, she became very concerned that she will certainly outlive her cash. So she consulted with 3 monetary coordinators as well as took their advice, and on December the 1st, 2021 spent $600K right into the VFOX Lead Target Retired Life 2040 Fund. Although this is a Target Retired Life Fund, because she is disabled and also not working now, she had to invest it in a taxable account. She wished to spend the cash bit by bit over the next couple of years, also known as dollar expense averaging. However, was recommended that she would benefit more by simply doing a lump sum investment and have even more time in the market keeping that large sum of cash. The financial planners informed her that Lead has actually been around forever. They are quite possibly appreciated in the industry. They developed the index fund and have very reduced costs. They discussed VFOX also purchases bonds, and also told her bonds move in contrary directions as equities, so even if the supplies go down, the bonds will certainly rise. Last I examined, the bonds within VFOX are additionally down 9.1%. My sister got $94.187 in funding gains, tax obligations. Yes, you check out that right. $94,187. The capital gains were roughly 40 times higher than the quantity in 2020 for VFOX. I believe there is a class action lawsuit filed against Vanguard due to this. You can check out it right here. I told my handicapped sibling who saved for 3 decades to accumulate $618K just to get hit with a substantial capital gains tax obligation, as well as to see it go down over 19% in 6 months. Not to fret because the market always rises. My take: wow. There is a lot to unbox below. Broadly talking, there are 3 issues. Was spending her $600,000 as a lump sum a poor concept? Was VFOX a bad fund option? Was Vanguard a bad selection? So, did Miss Pink get bad advice from her 3 experts? We'll look at each of those concerns consequently. But let's start with a couple of caveats. The first is, we don't recognize exactly what she told them or what guidance she supplied. We likewise do not understand if these were 3 experts interacting in the very same firm or 3 distinct advisors that separately created the same recommendations. Probably, the experts would certainly have asked why she intended to spend her cash, and she would have told them what Mr. Pink informs us. Since she is unable to function currently, she came to be really concerned that she will outlive her cash. While the last 6 months have been tough on her profile, with that assistance, general, I would certainly say the guidance was audio. However, not totally. As we'll see, allows take a better look. Was investing her $600,000 is a round figure, a negative concept, with the advantage of knowledge. Clearly Miss Pink would have been much better off had her experts used the dollar price, ordinary DCA, method to gradually deploy her resources over time. Doing so, she would certainly have collected her shares at lower rates than what she paid in December. But this assumes the prices after December would as a matter of fact be reduced, something her experts could not have actually recognized at the time. So, what were the chances the price of her shares would certainly be reduced? Turns out, just to 25% of the time. The other to 75% of the time, stock costs increase. Because the only time you gain from making use of DCA over spending the lump sum is when share prices decrease. You are making a bet with a 25% chance of winning. Naturally, occasionally that 25% repays, as it would certainly have in this instance. However, back in December, the experts didn't have the advantage of today's hindsight. At that time, choosing the 75% opportunity lump sum spending supplied looked to be the much better choice. It was. For more on this, see why I don't like dollar price averaging. Was VFOX a bad fund selection? Again, with the advantage of hindsight. Sure, it is down 15.5% since July the 21st as I am composing this message. That is a little much better than the marketplace on the whole. The S&P 500 is down 17.5%. VFOX is a target retired life fund ETF as well as. While I am not crazy about these, I do think they are an excellent fit for some people. Individuals like Miss Pink as an example. They supply a mix of supply as well as mutual fund that automatically come to be a lot more conservative, i.e. more bonds as they obtain closer to the retirement day. In this situation, 2040. So Miss Pink never ever has to stress over changing her asset allocation as time goes by. TIFs make long-lasting investing nearly as straightforward as it can perhaps be, which for someone like Miss Pink is a vital consideration. Here is my complete take on TIFs. TIFs are what is known as a fund of funds, that is, the fund holds various other funds. This is what VFOX Vanguard's target retirement 2040 fund holds. 47% VSMPX, this is the institutional version of VTSAX United States Supplies. 32% VGTSX International Supplies. 14% VTBIX, this is the institutional variation of VBTLX United States Bonds. 6% VTILX International Bonds. What we have here is an allocation of to 80% stocks, 20% bonds. Now this coincides allotment I have with my supplies and bonds. As well as I consider it relatively hostile. Too hostile for Miss Pink. Based upon what Mr. Pink has actually told us. Sticking with a TIF. Others from Vanguard look like this. VTHIX leads target retired life 2030 fund is to 65% stocks, 35% bonds. VTTVX Vanguard's target retirement 2025 fund is to 60% stocks, 40% bonds. VTWNX leads target retired life 2020 fund is to 44% stocks, 56% bonds. I most likely would have selected VTTVX. Because without the development of at the very least 50% in supplies, portfolios have a hard time lasting for years. See my 4% guideline blog post. But all this will certainly be dividing hairs for Mr. Pink. His grievance is that bonds have actually choked up, unlike what the advisors stated. They explained VFOX also buys bonds, as well as informed her bonds relocate contrary instructions as equities, so even if the supplies drop, the bonds will certainly go up. Naturally. In this he is right. Yet, I would certainly make a number of observations, none of which are likely to make him feel better. Bonds dropping in tandem with stocks is uncommon and also is a feature of increasing rates of interest applied despite rising cost of living. Spending is inherently dangerous as well as doesn't constantly most likely to strategy. Mutual fund will certainly recoup. They have the advantage of some bonds in the portfolio constantly getting to maturity, freeing up the money to purchase the new, higher producing bonds being currently supplied. The trick, as with stocks, is to stay the course. Was lead an inadequate choice? Taking a look at the link Mr. Pink gave, it actually does appear like Vanguard stepped in it on this one. The article Mr. Pink links to gives an excellent description. But below is what occurred in a nut covering. Like the majority of their funds, Vanguard supplies institutional variations of their TIFs. Institutional funds are aimed at 401k type strategies and also have very large first financial investment requirements. In exchange, these funds additionally offer lower cost ratios as lead, trying to make these cheaper funds available to smaller companies. Dramatically decreased the threshold. As the post states, in December 2020, Vanguard reduced the plan level minimum investment need for the institutional target retired life funds to $5 million from $100 million. Now, as long as an employer's 401k plan had $5 million in assets, across the whole strategy, not just someone, they can now access the more affordable institutional variation. A huge financial savings for perhaps hundreds of small companies. Also intentioned as this most likely was, it caused an unplanned consequence, it worked also well. Evidently large quantities of cash moved from TAFs like VFOX to their institutional twins, which created substantial selling in the funds. And that created enormous resources gains then handed down to the fund shareholders. For those holding these funds in an IRA or 401k, this was a non-event. No tax obligations would schedule. But also for those like Miss Pink, who possessed the fund in a taxable account. It was a discourteous as well as expensive shock. A shock compounded for Miss Pink because her experts placed her into the fund in December, right prior to capital gains for the year are dispersed. While her advisors could not have actually known this distinctly huge funding gain circulation was coming. It is standard good sense to avoid purchasing a fund right before capital gains and rewards are paid. Doing so just returns several of your cash to you with a tax due. There is no informing exactly how this legal action will certainly play out. However, probably Mr. Pink as well as his sibling can take some alleviation in the fact his mathematics on this is wrong when he states, "My sister obtained $94.187 in funding gains taxes. What sh?